It's interesting how things can come in bunches here on Rev Reads. I'll read a few different books on the end times at the same time period. And I had one point where I went through a few books on angels and demons. Well, not long ago, I reviewed John Tretzvin's independent book, The Sermon on the Mount, which you can download for free from the Rev Reads Facebook group. And that was my first review of a book on the Sermon on the Mount on Rev Reads. And in John's book, he focused on the occasion and the setting for the Sermon on the Mount in his study and walkthrough. Today, I bring you a much different work on the greatest sermon ever preached. And that book is The Extra Mile by Cody Wallace. The Extra Mile walks the reader through Matthew chapters 5 through 7, one phrase or paragraph at a time. And Cody's focus is not so much on the unique timing of when the sermon was given and what its overall purpose might be. And I really like John's writing on those subjects the more I think about his book. But Cody is here to help you apply the Sermon on the Mount to your life today. Regardless of who Jesus' primary audience may have been, if he was speaking eye to eye with the Jews of that generation along with his disciples, or looking forward to the coming kingdom that he will one day establish on earth, there is still so much to learn from the Sermon on the Mount, and we would all live more stable and blessed and joyful lives by putting this sermon into practice. And Cody's here to help you apply the Sermon on the Mount today. And what I love about Cody's work in this book is that he isn't presenting the Sermon on the Mount as a new law for the church or a new way for you to work yourself into God's favor or to maintain his favor. He isn't here to guilt trip you or chew you out for not sacrificing enough or being too judgmental. Instead, this is a very grace-focused walk through the sermon, where Cody is here as your friend, as your local pastor, to help you put these chapters into practice with a spirit of compassion and grace. And if you have a few minutes, I would love to tell you a little bit more about The Extra Mile by Cody Wallace. Welcome to Rev Reads. If you want to discover more books that will help you to dive deeper into Jesus Christ's most expansive teachings, please subscribe to the channel so that you can stay up to date with my latest book review. Also, please like and share this video with others to help them learn about the work of Cody Wallace. And I want to again say thank you to the Buy Me a Coffee members. Your support means so much. I could never cover the costs of Rev Reads without your support in order to produce these reviews. And in fact, my costs are kind of outstripping what I'm receiving right now from my Buy Me a Coffee members. And so if you've benefited from this channel, I would love for you to consider supporting it at a beginning membership of only $3 a month. I don't think there's any other ministry out there like Rev Reads that's highlighting the writings and the works of other believers in the church. And so I would love for you to support what we're doing here. Now, I don't think I need to take the time to overview the structure of this book because it's exactly what you would expect. Cody walks us through the sermon one section at a time, with the book divided into 40 easy to digest chapters covering all the subjects of this sermon, from calls to be merciful to instructions on prayer to the importance of putting all of these instructions into practice. One of the great things about this book is that it is filled with scripture from outside of the Sermon on the Mount. Cody is here reaching from all over the Bible to allow the Bible itself to illuminate, describe, and apply the teachings in this sermon. While Cody sprinkles in his own stories and illustrations throughout, so often he's drawing straight lines from one passage to another passage, saying, if you want to know more about being overly judgmental, let's look at this text. If you want to know more about being a peacemaker, well, we have this other passage on the same subject. This makes this book thoroughly grounded in the scriptures as a whole. And I think this book can be used for the reader in three different ways. One, just read it yourself. The chapter length makes it an ideal book for someone who is an average reader to read a chapter of this book a day in their morning or evening devotionals. And if you want to really know the Sermon on the Mount, and let's be honest, if you're going to really want to know any teaching in the world, shouldn't it be this sermon? You could spend 40 days reading through the Sermon on the Mount. Read it through every single day for 40 days. And then read a chapter of this book each day. And what a wonderful way that would be to jumpstart 2025. At the beginning of this year, spend 40 days reading through the Sermon on the Mount every single day and then walking through Cody's gracious instructions. Second, this book would also make for a great Sunday school class or a small group study for a 40-week study. It'd be awesome if Cody could provide us with some discussion questions online. And then finally, a pair of books that I've reviewed this year together would make for the ultimate next level of discipleship training. And those two books are pairing The Extra Mile by Cody Wallace with Earl Rademacher and Gary Derrickson's The Disciple Maker. I can't think of a better way to disciple a new Christian than to go through the upper room discourse in John's Gospel and the Sermon on the Mount in Matthew's Gospel. And Cody's book makes for a great pair next to The Disciple Maker in order to do that. I think my favorite chapter in the entire book was the chapter on giving. Talking about giving can be tough because there are so many emotions when it comes with money. And all that is involved with this. And I think Cody did a really good job navigating those waters well. And I hope to use the instructions to the extra mile when I speak in the future about money and giving with others. And let's not be those people who sound the trumpet whenever we give. Let's give with modesty and for an audience of one in order to hear well done when we stand before the Lord in glory. He also handled very well the section on false teachers and judging their fruit. Let's not turn our brains off when our favorite teacher is speaking, but weigh their words with Scripture as we give them a hearing. The book is The Extra Mile by Cody Wallace. So let us be willing to give of ourselves, to sacrifice that extra mile, to be gracious and compassionate to others. And as we journey on this life, let us always walk in the confidence of Christ that can only come from standing with Him in security.